raise my rates, but reality has to set in, and I think certainly I understand that, and I think when explained correctly, people will also. I just
Yeah.
it kind of feels like maybe even the big price increase we had 3 years ago maybe wasn't enough.
That's true, yes.
Let's hope things get
And-
better quicker. One of those things.
And yes, and one of the things I hopefully will explain over the next several months is, what is the true cost of us providing water to our customers and helping them understand that. And I think once you have a customer base that understands, it costs us much to do this. And we've got a lot of vendors and suppliers, and their costs are continually going up, and as their costs continually go up, our need to raise rates needs to go up correspondingly. So.
One of my questions and one of my concerns, of course, it's a gambling and golf town, and we have 7 really spectacular golf courses here. And I know they get allotments of the recycled water, but I'm certain they also use an awful lot of water from you. And what are those balancing acts? Can you help us understand maybe how much water do they buy from you, and how you are going to structure a rate increase that doesn't put them out of business, because they're obviously a vital part of this town also, and yet unfortunately the very nature of their business requires a bunch of water.
True. I'm an avid golfer. I love golf too. And it's not my...
We know your heart's in the right place.
Yeah, my heart's in the right place. I certainly don't want to put anybody out of business. And again, this is getting into a complicated myriad of things. I know some of the golf courses purchase from the city reused water, wastewater, and then the district has a couple of contracts in place with a couple of the golf courses for leased water that they did a couple of years ago, and then the other golf courses, just purchase water straight out from us. That's something that, as we move forward in this rate study, that's part of that dual-edged sword that you want to make sure that you keep people in business, but you got to make sure that you're covering your costs of providing water. And I know this is a political answer, but I don't have the details to be able to give you any more than that right now.
No, I knew if you had the answers, it would already be public, but sounds like a pretty good balancing act in front of
Oh, it's definitely, I got a lot of plates spinning on that one, trying to make it them all stay spinning.
You walked into quite a firestorm. Water delivery systems, you mentioned the complexity of our system. I know there was a problem with some bad pipe that you got a legal settlement on that has helped resolve some of that problem. But I guess the overall question from a citizen's viewpoint is, are we in danger of losing our water supply because our infrastructure is not being kept up?
Yes and no. Another political answer.
Oh, I don't want to hear that. Yes part.
We have a couple of bottleneck points in our system. We have a tremendous amount of pumping capacity, but there's a couple of those places where that pumping capacity only has one line leading into town, and if that one line went down, then we'd have some significant shortages in town as a result of a line break. One of them is the Riverside Bridge here. We have several wells on the south side up on the bench there that provide water that comes to the other side of the bridge. If that line got washed out or broke for whatever reason, we would have some significant problems in the central part of the city. We also have a very large producing well up on the north end of town that we have a 24-inch transmission line from that well. It's up by the landfill. And that 24-inch transmission line follows the road all the way down into town. And if that line broke, the north end of town would see some significant water outages. And so part of our plan, our capital facilities plan over the next couple of years, is to build some redundancy within our system by providing an additional line from the north side over into the Pulte Homes area where it's needed. And then also looking at over where the city is looking at the new interchange, providing a water line underneath the highway over for that industrial area on the west side of town. And then also putting in a redundant, hopefully we can work with NDOT and put a redundant line across the Riverside Bridge to make sure if this one goes out that we're covered. So that the water transmission infrastructure, once we get those in place, we'll be in great shape. And then we have a couple of, based on the growth as we're moving forward, and I realize it's not going to be real fast growth, or it may not be real fast growth based on what I've been told. We still need to have another source. We're roughly at about 90% of our peak day capacity in the summertime on our pumping. And 3 of our wells provide 70% of our water. So if any one of those wells goes out, or 2 of the 3 of those wells go out, in the summertime we'll be in very serious shape. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is providing another well or develop the Nickel Creek Springs over the next 5 years to provide that additional source capacity and backup for the system.
So I guess the answer to, yes, we could run out of water if the worst happened, but you've got plans to get us some redundancy.
Yes.
Great. Speaking of, is Nickel Creek the springs resource that's near the Gold Butte area?
Yes. Yes.
Well, let's talk about that a minute. That's, of course, the Gold Butte legislation, proposed legislation is controversial. But it doesn't seem like it should be as far as the Virgin Valley Water District is concerned, because it's my understanding that Nickel Creek resource, as well as the roads leading to it, are all outside of the area that will be designated as wilderness should that legislation pass. So the use of those roads and the access to our water resource, excuse me, our water resource shouldn't really be affected by the legislation. And so I'm guessing, I guess, is that a true statement? And is there something else the water district wants to be sure is included in that legislation that's kind of a go or no go for support from the water district?
Yeah, I think in general the water district, based on there was an amendment to the Horsford bill that specifically talked about the Virgin Valley Water District sources and access to them, which was, I think that got us 95% of the way there. There's one more piece of language that I'd like to include in that piece there, and that is if we develop the Nichols Creek Springs, we're required to have a source protection plan, and as part of that source protection plan, and that precludes allowing anything to be located in hydrogeological time travel zone away from the spring. And we haven't done the studies to figure out what that hydrogeologic zone is, where the springs are actually receiving the underground water from. But if that is, part of that zone is up within the boundary, we want to make sure that we can get a land use agreement from the BLM to be able to designate that as a source protection zone for those springs, so that nothing, it's basically a land use agreement to make sure that nothing can be placed in there that could contaminate the spring source.
Right, but then again, that would be designated wilderness area anyway, so that
I just want to cover our bases.
Yeah, it shouldn't be a real hard argument. They don't want to put anything there, and you don't want them to put anything there. Right?
Yeah, we should have a mutually exclusive agreement on that one, but just want to make sure. So yeah, if we can get that, then yes, the Virgin Valley Water District has no issues with the unless the boundaries change and they do happen to impact our sources and stuff. So.
The last thing I'd like to discuss a little bit is the management systems. And remember, my background is management, and so I look at everything from a manager's viewpoint and operational systems. To me, when I moved here several years ago, was the water district and the power district, and these things were kind of very odd to me. I had never been anywhere where they weren't municipally owned or highly regulated. So in a situation here, the general manager yourself is overseen by a group of elected people who could change every couple of years, and who, you know, may or may not have conflicts of interest and may or may not have a lot of water expertise. You know, people elect them, and you have to live with them. Are you comfortable with that system? I mean, I know you probably don't have any choice, but it just seems. I guess one of my surprises was in the past, and I'm not saying with the current board, but in the past, there was what I thought some inappropriate activities by the board members, meeting with employees without the knowledge or presence of the general manager. And in my management experience, you cannot have somebody managing people and yet have them be able to go around his back to his bosses or directors whenever they wanted. And so that was something that had occurred in the past. I don't know as it is now. But in general, what do you think about the entire system and the way it's set up?
I think what you said, it's something that, it's here, and, that's the way it is, and, I knew that coming in, so it's not a big issue for me. However, with that said, and I understand that, some of those things happened in the past. I've talked to each of the board members, and they've committed to me that, you're the general manager, we trust you. We're not going to go behind your back and talk to staff and which I'm thankful for, because I agree with you. Once you start doing that, you start undermining the ability of management to do their job, and the employees start questioning well, who's really running the show, and who do we need to be loyal to, and things like that. So yeah, that is an issue, but the board has assured me that that will not take place, and unless there's a need for it to take place, I lose the trust of the board and things like that, which I guess they're the board and they're the policymakers and lead. Relative to the other issues, I've been around a lot of water boards. I served on the Utah Drinking Water Board, and while those weren't elected positions, they were appointed positions by the governor, and so there were some friendships going on here and there, and I have to say that one of the best chairpersons that we had on that drinking water board her name was Ann Erickson. She used to be the head of the Salt Lake Community College up in Salt Lake area, and she had no idea how water systems worked or anything like that. She put her time in on the board and learned, and once she became the chairperson of the board, she turned out to be an outstanding administrator and understanding how things worked, and so getting to the point of whether or not people need to really be knowledgeable of how water systems work, I don't think that's a big criteria, as long as they have the passion that they want to learn how to make it work. And then getting to the issues of hope we edit this part here. Conflicts of interest. Thank you.
Okay, here we go.
Getting to the issues of conflicts of interest, I think you can almost have anybody that's going to be part of the board here have some sort of potential conflict of interest on any variety of the subjects that are going to be addressed by the board, whether it's a developer and they happen to be a realtor, or they may be in engineering and we're doing a design of a project, or they just happen to be a longtime family member who owns water shares here. I mean, that stuff's going to happen, and I think the thing that and I was happy to see it a couple board meetings ago. One of the board members indicated that they had a conflict of interest on the subject. They recused themselves and left the meeting, and did not participate in the discussion or the vote. And I think as long as we have honest people serving on the board, and that they can come forward and admit that, you know, hey, I've got a conflict of interest, I'm going to recuse myself from participating in the discussions. You know, I've seen that handled very well in the past, and I hope that as we move forward, as part of the integrity and honesty piece of the whole district thing, I hope that that's what's going to play out in the future.
I did notice that you guys have also been in the process of revamping your contract and bidding processes that, at least as far as I've seen, make me feel like you're taking all the steps you can to assure that somebody doesn't give a contract to their friends, that there's an open bidding process and that it's very regulated and kept out in the open, so that there's no favoritism in that process. I appreciate that. That's all the questions I have. Do you have anything else you want to talk about?
No, I appreciate the opportunity to have this interview, and I look forward to serving the citizens of the Virgin Valley District for many years to come, and getting to know people more and letting them get to know me better, and involving them in the public process of helping us make this a better district.
Great. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, thank you, John.